How's it going, folks? My name's Matthew, aka EZBOT, and we're back with another live stream. Today we're going to be taking a look at some of the advantages that you can find having a compact analog polyphonic synthesizer added to your setup. And this is something that I always crave to have in my setup, considering that I typically am using Digitact and the Digatone 2 for most of my productions. So often I'm really lacking that analog sound, and something I feel really strongly about is that you should have an analog synthesizer, whether it be a monophonic or a poly. I think having an analog polyphonic synthesizer is such a bonus to have in your setup, and having a monophonic analog synthesizer is too. But today we're having a look at the sequential Take 5. This is actually a keyboard that I used to own. I used to have the full-sized sequential keyboard, and I ended up selling it and getting a Prophet 5, like the full-on Prophet 5, because, and I'll tell you why I did that, even though it's, 3x the price of this unit. For one, I worked at a synthesizer store, so I got some pretty good deals on synthesizers, so that alone made it a little bit easier for me. But two, this synthesizer is based off, so much of this synthesizer is based off the Prophet 5. And the Prophet 5 is a quintessential synthesizer in, music from years, from the 70s on. It's it's an epic, iconic synthesizer. And this has a lot of the same sounds with a bunch of modern upgrades. So I believe it's a 2130, I think is the name of the chipset that goes in here. And that's the same analog chipset, and you can hear it. Kind of sounds like an OBX or something right there. Like it has an Oberheim sound to it a little bit, even though it's not an Oberheim. But the chipset that's in here is the chipset you're going to find in a ton of new Eurorack modules. Okay, so like in the Demon Core, WMD Legion, I believe they're using the same chipset. And one of the advantages of this chipset is that it's a modern oscillator. So to start the whole sound off with this synthesizer is a newer, modern oscillator sound. So a very stable oscillator. And actually one of the features it offers that you won't find here, but the reason why it's in Eurorack modules, I believe, is because it has through zero FM, which is not something that we have in the Take 5. I do think it would be cool that if it had through zero FM, it would have been maybe a little bit more complex and, to get that dialed in on a unit like this. I'm not sure, but regardless, it's a newer oscillator. So let's just keep that in mind. With some of the things that are that harken back to the Prophet 5 is actually the Prophet 5 Rev 4. And it was one of the reasons why I picked up the keyboard version of this to begin with, is that the Prophet, or the Take 5, which is a 5-voice analog polysynth, used a very similar filter as what you'll find in the Prophet 5 Rev 4, which is the big synth that I do have out of the camera. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to get this and, kind of get that sound. And I did. I had that sound, but I ended up having just too many keyboards and I have very limited space, especially at the time that I had it. I was living in an apartment and I had very little space and I really wanted that big synthesizer. So I ended up selling it. But now I have the desktop unit in front of me, and this thing, while it is long, as you can see, it is longer than my Digitact and my Digatone, is very compact. It's thin. It's thinner than a Digitact and a Digatone. And it's got all the features that I would need, plus a bunch of built-in effects. And the effects sound great. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to use it to make some music. And I'll kind of like talk about the unit and explain how it functions and why I like it. Because I do like it. Right now I have it running into my Digatone is going to be the controller for this. And let's just talk about why you would pick something like this up in your setup anyway, if you're somebody like me who's using a Digitact 2 and a Digatone 2. Because there's some really good reason for it. For one, the Digatone 2 does not sound like an analog synthesizer, and you can't make it sound like one. You can emulate some, not emulate, but you can do what would be considered analog subtractive synthesis, where you're just using generic basic waveforms, even modulating the pulse width of those waveforms and stuff like that. But they just don't have that same sound. They are zeros and ones in the end, and that's how it's going to be. An analog synthesizer is not that case. This is a fully analog synthesizer, analog envelope generator, analog filters, 16 patch mod matrix, which is crazy. We're going to talk about that because it's pretty cool. And you know, it has a particular sound. And if I switch over to this chord mode, I'm just jumping all over the place because, you know, it's Tuesday. We're excited about synthesizers. If I go into chord mode, which is nice, let's do chord center. I mean, oh, come on. What is this? 80s synthesizers to the max. Throw the bass down an octave. Sounds pretty cool. Let's check out another patch real quick. Okay, so it's an analog synthesizer. It sounds like an analog synthesizer. And to me, again, it sounds a lot like an Oberheim synth, despite it not being a sequential and not an Oberheim, and being more based off the Prophet. To me, it kind of has that sound, which I think is great. It's a great sound. You get that classic 80s synthesizer sound, and that's, most patches in here really bring me back to exactly that thought, that this is like awesome for like dub techno, for synthwave. I mean, it's great for anything because it's got all the modulation you could ever need. But those are the sounds, like when you run through the patches, that's where your head will go. I think it'll take you straight to like synthwave 80s classic pop tunes. And I think that's awesome. You know, there's a few things I'm going to show off in regards to using this with Electron and why I think the Digatone is such a great option to pair with this. But a lot of it has to do, the Digatone has this great chord mode, has this great note editor. I don't need the keyboard on here. I'm not going to play keys. You don't want to watch me play keys because I'm not an amazing keys player. I'm much better at programming than I am at keys. My guitar, if I plug my MIDI guitar interface into this, then that's a different question. But, you know, I'm sitting here at the desk. We're not going to be grabbing a MIDI guitar. And I prefer to program this and have it be something that I can take with me to shows and continue to work on. So I love the idea of pairing it with the Digatone in particular. And that's what we're doing right now. But what's happening is I'm sending, you know, MIDI out from the Digatone out to my sequential. And then that's actually being routed back into the Digitact so that I can layer and grab sounds. And currently I have it set up so that the compressor on the Digitact is being used as a sidechain bus, and it's, you know, it's going to duck the incoming audio. So say like we make a bass patch or something on here. And this is great. Actually, let's just show this up really quick, because this is one of the cool things about this synthesizer that I tested instantly. This was one of the first things I tried out with the Take 5 was, could it do program change, instant program changes? And let's just check out these results with it really quick. Let's just fill up the step sequencer and then turn on program change function, push down on the encoder, and let's just lock in a bunch of program changes in different steps. And they can be random. They can go back to the, you know, you reuse the same ones. It doesn't matter to me. And let's just hear what happens. Instant program change snapping? Go into my mixer and like what? Like what? That's so sick. It's like instantly cool. You know, and all these patches, they're pre-programmed with breadth control and mod wheel and That's cool right there. I mean, that alone, like, the moment that I tried that out, I was like, this is fantastic. Another synthesizer that I know that can do this particular action is the Novation Bass Station, which is why they came out with that Aphex mode. This has the same thing. Like, it doesn't have Aphex mode because that, like, literally maps their keyboard that the Bass Station comes with. But it has instant program change snapping, and it just is so creative to have this paired with an Electron box. You know, we can stay within a scale using our scale mode too. Let's try that really quick. I just want to hear how that sounds. So right now I do have it in a scale mode. So I push down on my encoder and it will lock to the scale. I can just press down on these and it's just going to move through these different scaled steps. Having them all go up, it doesn't really matter. Some of these are bass notes, so should work out pretty well. And this kind of like experimentation, when a synthesizer can do this paired with my Electron box, particularly paired with my Digatone, I kind of have this like fall in love moment where I kind of want to hold on to the synthesizer. Whoa. The only thing I wish it did was, oh wait. Sounds totally nuts now. You know what? Because there's a couple of these patches that are chords, and those chords, they're not in tune with my scale. Regardless, you can see how cool that is. Anyhow, that's what I really liked about it. Right when I picked it up, right when I checked it out, I was like, wow, I love instant patch switching on Electron. This is what the Analog 4 would do, but the Analog 4 only has 4 voices. So instead of having the Analog 4 up here, which, you know, might be sacrilege or shameful for me to say, they're not the same. Like this, not only does it have more voices than Analog 4, it has more effects than the Analog 4, and it's got, you know, its whole purpose is its sound, as opposed to the Analog 4 has got the whole Electron, you know, sequencer built into it, which has its own, you know, awesome potential on its own, of course. But anyhow, just having something like this is so sick. But let's check it out. So what I want to do, I'm going to turn off these little mods right here and just kind of show off some of this stuff because I think it's really cool. And like, I do recommend this synthesizer to people as a beginner's synthesizer. It's, you know, the price point doesn't say beginner from it. There's lots of other synthesizers that definitely, I think you could consider them more of a beginner price point, but I'd say in terms of complexity of synthesis and the kind of sounds that you're going to come up with on this thing is more in the beginner intermediate level. And I mean, an advanced programmer, an advanced sound designer can take anything to the next level with, you know, LFOs and you know, different modulators. And this has so much modulation that it's so easy to modulate, and program modulation, which I'm going to show you. But I still believe that this to be something that is a very entry point synthesizer. The sound of it is an entry point. The sound of it's fantastic. But in terms of, is this going to be hard for me to learn? That kind of scenario? No, this is not a hard synth to learn. If you're struggling to learn the Take 5, then, well, I don't even know where I would go with that. My point is that I'm trying to make is that this is not a synthesizer that you should be struggling for very long to learn. Like, if you're brand spanking new to synthesizers and to synthesis, the Take 5 is the one to learn on because it has the setup for it already. Like, if we look at the front panel, oops, I'm jumping all over the place. We look at the front panel, we have these color layouts letting you know what's going on in these sections. Things are kind of obvious. We have a knob per function on almost every single feature on the synthesizer, which I think is fantastic. That's really what you want. That's something that we loved about the model samples and model cycles from Electron, and you know, whatever happened to those things? Still wondering why that didn't ever Where's our updates? But I love having knob per function stuff on any synthesizer. And this has an overdrive on the filter, an overdrive on the main unit. It has a distortion in here. So if you want to get into those really crunchy, disgusting sounds, this can totally get there. So you can get some really gnarly, like industrial, hard techno sound design from this thing, which is something that I think is a very attractive thing about the unit, or about any synthesizer, that it has multiple distortions. Like you're getting my attention with that, that's for sure. Despite my love for like beautiful, polyphonic chordal type stuff, this does a great job of not doing that too. But it's a really simple synth. So like say we want to make a patch from scratch. Let's go and select, I think it's number 28. Yes, right. So now we're in a basic program. Oh no, hang on. My bad. I do want to load basic program. Okay. And let me turn off this. That what's happening is that this is got a program change on. And we have some effects. Let's turn those off really quick. Okay. So we just have some sawtooth waves. And that's what it starts you off with, is a sawtooth wave. So you're brand new to synthesizers. What are you gonna do? You start off with a blank patch. This is not how you would start. Like if you're brand new to synthesizers, you don't usually go right into sound design. You typically go right into your presets and you start turning some knobs and just enjoying the lovely presets that come with your synthesizers. And this comes with banks full of presets that are awesome and usable in most any music context, as most sequential synths do. I think the Prophet Rev 2 was my first polyphonic analog synthesizer. And as I said, I've had a couple sequentials and eventually settled on the Prophet 5 Rev 4. And, that's now like basically my piano at the house. I need to get the extra set of voices because it only has 5 voices in it right now. But so say you're brand new to the Take 5 and you want to design your first patch. You're ready. You've learned where the sections are. We have an envelope here. We have another envelope here. We can route these 2 envelopes to do all sorts of different things. We have a wonderful low-pass filter. Like I said, a similar filter to what you'd find in the Prophet 5 Rev 4. Not the same filter, but very similar based off the same concepts. We have a built-in arpeggiator. We have a sequencer, which we're not going to play with because we have Electron, and I don't care who writes their sequencer for whatever synthesizer. Electron sequencers are, in my opinion, the best. So it does what a basic synth sequencer does, polyphonic sequencing. Cool. Great to have, but if we have an Electron sequencer, I'm definitely going to use that. We have an arpeggiator. The arpeggiator is as robust as any other arpeggiator. Not quite as robust as, say, an Electron arpeggiator, but we don't get to use an external arpeggiator with the Digatone, so that doesn't even matter. So I'm glad that this has an arpeggiator because I can just program chords here, send it to the arpeggiator, and get some cool action. Clock divisions, BPM plus clock divisions. I have it synced to my external clock right now, and you can also sync your effects by clicking this. And then the mod section is where things get really cool. But before we get over there, let's just talk about this mixer. So oscillator 1, you can hear like, you can still kind of hear, I don't know if you can hear it on YouTube, but there's a little bit of, if I have the filter open all the way and I have the mixer turned all the way down, there's a little bit of bleed coming through. And that's not, I wouldn't call it bleed. I just think the VCA doesn't close all the way. And that's usually intentional. I'm not sure why, but it is. But if you close this filter, it does go to silence, which is something I think is really important. Usually my gripe with a synthesizer that doesn't go to complete silence is usually because the filter doesn't go to complete silence, which is something that I found in the Rev 2. The Rev 2, I believe, uses a Curtis filter, I think. And when you turn the filter frequency all the way down, there's a little bit of sound that comes through. You wouldn't hear it in a production. Like, it wouldn't exist in a production. It's not a big deal. Just something, as you're playing, you expect it to be silent. And you hear maybe something in the background, and that's that. You don't have that problem here with the Take 5. So that's really awesome. This little mixer section, this is where you're going to mix in your 2 oscillators. It's a dual oscillator synthesizer, so you get 2 oscillators per voice. They can FM each other. So you can play with that and get your overtones. Like, this is, FM sounds crazy on analog synthesizers. This is usually like, it'll take you some effort to get a bell tone. That's oscillator sync. It's got all the goodies. All the classic synthesis stuff you would expect. In your effects section, you'll even find a ring modulator for your really crazy sounds. So you can really go to a very disgusting place with your ring modulator plus overdrive plus FM plus oscillator sync. So sound design potential, definitely pretty ripe on this sucker. Got a sub oscillator, which is great. We got noise. We got 2 LFOs. One of them's a polyphonic LFO, which is cool. And that's not always common to have a polyphonic LFO. That means that it has a mono LFO that just gets triggered every time a note gets hit. It re-triggers that LFO because it's monophonic. But a polyphonic LFO means that it's going to re-trigger an LFO on a per voice basis. So each one of these voices has an LFO. And I don't know if we're even going to play with that. I'm just pointing that out, that exists. I don't always find that to be the most useful tool in a lot of the production that I do, but it does make for some really cool rhythmic stuff when you have it. Each note gets triggered and it sends a new modulation to each voice, which is cool. So I like that. And it's easy to switch between your 2 LFOs, all the classic shapes for an LFO, and then you have your oscillator section. Then over here you have your sequential stuff, or the 2 sequential little treats, master effects over here, which is a vintage knob, which they started adding to all their instruments because people were kind of obsessed with this vintage idea when it first came out. And I think it came out on the Prophet 5 Rev 4 first. If I'm remembering correctly, you can feel free to correct me if you like. But that is really useful. Double tap your screen. Oh, like. Oh, that's really nice. Yeah, so we have a master overdrive, which is nice because it'll be post effects as far as I understand. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But then we have the vintage knob, which, as far as I know, how the vintage knob functions on sequential synths and on other synths that are starting to have this vintage concept to the synthesis is like, it's basically like a slewed random LFO that's like just going out to envelopes and oscillators and filter cutoff and resonance, and everything is just getting this like mild smushing. It almost sounds like chorus. Like, check it out. This is just we've done nothing. We just have 2 oscillators turned up. They're set on sawtooth wave. We can set them on sawtooth wave for sure. And I'm going to turn up the vintage. Sounds like chorus. So with your vintage turned up at like 50%, this sounds like a 70s, 80s synthesizer. Like, I would recommend you kind of leave it at 12 o'clock. I think that's a great idea. Even setting like the overdrive at like maybe 9 o'clock, like at 25% plus the vintage, even though it adds a little bit of volume, you're going to get very snappy envelopes, Prophet 5 envelopes from what I understand. You have super snappy envelopes, which I really like. Makes me think of Maths. Maths is like the ultimate snappy envelope generator in Eurorack. And so, I mean, overall, it's just a really simple synthesizer, despite what it looks like maybe on this overhead panel. But this is what makes this thing special. What makes it really simple. This is something that I really like about the Melbourne Instruments synthesizers. And a lot of other synthesizers follow suit in the same capacity, where you can just hold a button and turn a knob, just like Electron, and it will target the destination for your modulation. So say, like, for instance, we want to set an LFO to our pitch or something. Or how about let's do the filter cutoff. If I want to set an LFO, I can target LFO 1, hold destination, and turn filter cutoff. Now my LFO is targeting my filter cutoff, as you can see in the screen, and then I can just turn up however much I want. How easy is that for sound design? I mean, it's a piece of cake. Now we can go to LFO 2, and we can do the same thing again, but target, maybe the shape of this oscillator. And now that's targeted to the shape, and then we just turn up that amount. You could turn it down and have it go the other direction because it's bipolar. Let's turn on an effect. And like, this is a patch from scratch that we did in 2 seconds. You don't have to know too much. So like, what my point is like, if you want to add a compact analog poly to your setup, options like this are really good. I mean, if somebody else has some stuff they want to mention in the chat that they think is also like similar in form factor and functionality and sound quality, like feel free to do that, because I think that's cool for us to know. But right now, as far as I know, in terms of not per function, sound quality, and price point, which I don't, this is not a cheap synthesizer. Let's not lie to ourselves here. This isn't cheap, but it is effective at its job. And as far as the size goes, I think this is a pretty good option for something that I can literally, stack on top of my Electron boxes and get some really cool stuff out of. But check this out. So like, we were talking about the mod section, and this is kind of the magic. I was hoping to make some music, but right now I'm really kind of just enjoying playing with this chord mode on the Digatone and the Take 5 in general. I think maybe this is what I end up doing this whole time. I don't know, but maybe we'll get to some music making. This mod section's crazy. So if you hold source assign, this is what I think is really magical. We're still on the patch that we made from scratch. If I hold source assign, I can say like, okay, I want the source of this to be my filter cutoff. Okay, so now my mod source for mod 1 of 16 mod matrix. And usually a mod matrix is like brain explosion, like what's happening in the mod matrix, You're like freaking Neo every time you have to like go and chase the white rabbit of the mod matrix. And that is not necessarily the case here. It's really a piece of cake. We just hold source assign, choose a source. It could be pretty much anything on this panel. As far as I know, anything on the panel is good as the mod source. I haven't tried every knob. And then you choose destination assign. Like I said, we're on destination 1. So I could say destination assign, and I could set this to like my sub oscillator. And then we can turn up the value. So now what I just did is that when I turn the filter up, the filter output value is going to turn up my sub oscillator value. Maybe that's hard to hear even. But that is what it's doing. I mean, that's what's happening. Maybe we could pick another section. Maybe we'll have this destination be the envelope depth. And maybe we want when the filter depth goes up, that the depth also goes up. Or it goes down. Let's see what that sounds like. This is real long. Get that sucker out of there. Pretty sick. So just the idea that you can just play around with these different mod sections and look at all these mod sources. It's crazy. And then you have an auxiliary envelope. There's just the amount of modulation in this little unit is kind of out of control. I think it's cool. And I just love how it sits on top of my Digitac and Digatone like this. I think it's just a beautiful presentation, like in terms of like the way it looks on my camera, the way it feels in front of me. I'm like, this is actually pretty sick. I might have to like permanently have something like this hanging out over here. Maybe my Octatrack will be over here because this just makes me want to tinker. Let's go back to like these the patches here, and like my go-to with like playing with a synthesizer in general is not a patch from scratch every time I use a synth. Like there was this like misnomer in my life, I think, where I thought like once you got good at like electronic music, or once you were making electronic, you weren't really an electronic music producer unless you were making everything yourself from scratch. And that I thought for a long time. I think I thought that for like the first couple of years that I was getting into like electronic music, especially hardware electronic music. I've always been doing a little bit of electronic stuff mixed in with like acoustic stuff, which was mostly what I was doing. But I had this misconception that I needed to make everything myself for it to be mine. And as time progressed, that misconception went further and further away, and I'm so glad, because what I do now is respect the sound design of the people that get hired by these synthesizer manufacturers, because that's what they do. Like, that's their job, is to make these dope patches for these synthesizers. And as many dope patches as I've made, and I do think I've made some dope patches. I love the patches that I make from scratch on synths, and especially when I take the time to really, dive into one and keep working on it over a long period of time, going back to a patch and continuing to evolve that patch, which is something you can do on here because you can save and reopen your patches and resave them and continue that process of sound designing a particular sound. But what I do now, for the most part, is like, say I'm writing some music, I just go find a patch that inspires me, and then I start turning knobs. And that's what you would do if you had no idea what you were doing. It's the same thing that I'm doing now that I know what I'm doing. It's kind of funny how it's like, the snake eating its own tail. I've totally gone full circle here to the point where I don't need to go to a basic program and bring a new patch out. I only do that to explain to someone else, perhaps like maybe I'm teaching a lesson or doing a video talking about a synthesizer, where I would go to a basic program. But otherwise, I really wouldn't. I do like to know how to do it. It's something that I always do when I get a synth, is I learn it. I use a basic program to learn the synth. Once I've learned it, that's it. That's all I need to do. So I just wanted to talk about that for a moment. I think that's important for me to validate that idea for maybe new producers or new musicians or people that are just getting into sound design and they're picking up a synthesizer. Do you need to make your own patches from scratch? No. Is it a good idea to learn how to do it? For sure. Just like reading the manual is, instead of just picking up a template for something, right? It's good to learn how to do things. Teach a man to fish, that whole kind of idea. That's a good thing to do. Learn how to fish. You can catch your own fish. But if there's better fish at the market and you can afford it, pick your fish up and go home and cook it, right? That's kind of like what I'm talking about here to conclude that analogy. That being said, synthesizer is good, and I give my blessing to anybody who wants to know, what do you think of this synth? That's what I think, if you care about my opinion at all. I think it's a good sounding synth. I think the price point is a little, it's a little expensive. I don't know if it's more expensive than other stuff in its category, but synthesizers aren't cheap. Analog synthesizers aren't cheap, but you get what you pay for. You get something really nice, excellent build, feels really great. 5 voices, polyphonic LFO, 16 mod matrix, really easy to program, great sounding Prophet 5 filter, so you can be able to make patches that sound like the Prophet 5, which the Prophet synthesizers is what bands like Radiohead use in their productions. Everything that's right place is a Prophet patch. I think a Prophet 6 patch, and you can make that same patch on here. So there's, it has all the potential that you could possibly need. You want to make some like synthwave? Bam, this sucker's where it's at. That being said, what I want to find next is a bass patch on here, and then I programmed some sounds already. We have this simple drum patch going on in the Digitact. This is running into the Digitact. Digatone is controlling the take 5, and what I want to do is get a bass patch, set up the arpeggio, get a 16th note line, sidechain that 16th note line to the kick drum in my Digitact, record that, layer it over here, and then continue to program patches from the Digatone and record them here until we're done recording patches, and then we can just program something on top of it or start using the Digatone on top of this. We'll see if we get there in the 2-hour period that I like to do. That being said, let me say hello to the folks in the chat. I haven't gotten to do that yet, and one of the things I love about streaming is that it's social. And I don't live near all my friends, so being social in here is pretty useful for me. So I'm scrolling back up to the beginning of the chat. What's up, James? What's up, everybody? The Digatone can output chord mode on MIDI tracks. That's right, Jazz. The Digatone can output chord mode on MIDI tracks. Isn't that sick? There's even MIDI learn, and you can save. This is what's so dope. Okay, so like we're gonna talk about this for a second. This is why I love going to the chat, because you got my brain cooking. Something like this. It doesn't have to be this synth, but this synth is a great synth for this discussion. Say we take the MIDI output from this synthesizer. We run the MIDI output back into our Digatone. We have the MIDI from this going into this, right? So they're doing this circular function. When you're doing that, you can go over to your sections, your CC sections, and you have 16 of them. So 16 CCs, way more than you will ever need, especially on a synth like this. You just don't need that many CCs, but it's awesome that we have them. You can hold function, and MIDI learn will pop up. Hold function, push down on the encoder, and MIDI learn will pop up. And if I turn the knob here, it won't work because I don't have that plugged back into the synth, and I'm using my ports right now. Without a merger, not a quadra through, but a box similar to this called a MIDI merger, that would accomplish that goal. It's actually sitting over there. I'll show it to you. With a box like this, you could take a MIDI merger, and I could actually take this clock out from here and the output from here, merge it into here, and run that back into here, and then I could use the MIDI learn function, and that would be pretty useful, I'd say. So what you can do is you can use MIDI learn, turn the knobs. All you got to do is turn a knob, and it recognizes the CC. It just automatically connects those things. You go back to this section, you push down the encoder, and you can start dialing in values for those CCs. These are sending CCs, so whether or not I have it MIDI learned or not, it's going to affect the synthesizer, because a lot of the default CCs are already programmed pretty correctly to most synthesizers, especially stuff like this that's using a standard from, kind of a legacy standard for CC messages. So typically they just work, like the filter ones, often the filter, stuff like that. But if you hold that same idea and you hold function and push down on your Digatone, you can save your, same with the Digitac too, you can save your MIDI parameter as a, give it a name so that this is the filter cutoff. So once you've done your MIDI learn, and then you save your CC message name, the last step is you can go to your preset and save your preset, and you can save a MIDI preset, and we would name this MIDI preset Take 5, right? And we're not going to, because I don't have, the messages, but you would name it Take 5, and you could recall the Take 5 anytime you wanted from your Digatone. And you get all the advantages of the Digatone. You get the dope sequencer with 16 CC messages, and not the arpeggiator, but this has an arpeggiator, so that's sick. And you get the chord mode, the scale modes, and easily use the 5 voices that you get here. So I think it's a really powerful combo with something like a Digatone to use the Take 5. That's where my head's at. And I've already proven it to myself, and now my goal is to kind of prove it to you. But I think even just me talking about conceptually what you're able to do, I think your imagination should be able to run wild with what you could do potentially with a combo like this, knowing that you have a feature set like this in your Digatone or Digitact. Because this will, Digitact can do the same thing. You just don't have the wonderful chord mode that you have on your Digatone, which I don't know why. I don't know why they don't add that to the Digitac. Would be dope, wouldn't it? Because I do think that this would pair really nicely because we want to record stuff, but we're going to just find a good bass patch. So I'm going to get out of chord mode real quick. Here's a nice one. Whoa, very bassy. You can't see it, but out of the screen is my Octatrack. And the frequency content is clipping my Octatrack. Let me turn this down. And I'll turn up what you can hear. We don't want no clip in Octatracks. my headphones too. Okay, here we go. So we have like a decent bass patch. There's kind of the sound I was going for. Like I want a sharp. Envelope 1 is going to the filter. You have these different envelope options. You can press envelope routing and it will switch the envelope options. So we could have like an auxiliary envelope, which means we can just send it anywhere we want. And then envelope 2 will do both amp and filter, which is super common. And that's kind of the way you approach a lot of typical generic monophonic synthesizers, you know, from the past. We also have a filter plus gate, which we don't care about. You can do some cool stuff with it, but I'm not really interested in it. We can turn velocity on and off both for our filter envelope and for our amp envelope. Right now, the filter envelope is getting velocity in this current patch. We don't need velocity to do anything. This is sending a static velocity value. And we can use it for accents though. The ARP does not work on MIDI out when it comes to... on this, I don't know, but I think it does. I think you can use this. Could I move what? My face? Oh, because you wanted to see this? Something's going to get covered up on this synth no matter what. Okay, so what I want to do is we're going to start with just 16 steps. I'm going to program a 16th note line. I guess we could just kind of drop this down to, what scale was I in? A. Let's use A. Right now it's locked on C. Let's do this again. Oh, that's too low. Let's bring this to A4, I think. You can hear it ducking. We're at 115 BPM. Let's go a little lower even. Let's go to 110. Synthwave BPMs are awesome. I chose like something that sounded like kind of a, you know, a synthwave kick a little bit. Sound like an Lindrum or something. It's not a Lindrum, but and then I used a snare. Is it on here? Used a snare that reminded me of some synthwave snares, which if I let play all the way out, it seems like it has some distortion on it or something, but I shortened the envelope so that it just does that gated reverb sound. What I have going on is, if you go into my mixer section, you'll see I've just got maxed out the incoming volume, and that's just because how this works is that the incoming volume is not an amplifier, it's just a dry wet mix of how much volumes are coming in. So it's like it's not going to boost the signal. I have to do that on the device itself. But I have it coming in here, and then the way I have my compressor set up is that everything is turned off from going into my compressor. I talk about this often, how I like to use the compressor. I prefer to use an external compressor than the compressors in the device. I just use the compressors as a sidechain bus for my instruments, and that's how I'm using it now, and that's why it's ducking on the kicks, because I have this coming in, and my compressor is using the kick drum as its target for sidechain source, and then it's ducking the left and right inputs, which is what the sequential is coming into. And as I said, everything else is turned off except for that left and right input. I can throw other things into this sidechain bus, and I would plan to get to a stage where I do that. But right now, I just want to hear that bass line doing what it does. We have effects, and right now they're turned on even. Try turning them off. There we go. I think it was chorus. Oh, oops, I didn't mean to hit the sequencer. Yeah, chorus. Pretty strong chorus. But it sounds pretty good. You want to hear some distortion? better with chorus. A little strong though still. So my idea is that if I want to use this to get a lot of cool sounds, we have to sample it. And I do want to sample like, a bass line that is evolving over like 8 bars. I usually work in 8 bars, so let's make this 8 bars long. Right now it's just all the same notes, and I'm just gonna go through the tedious process of changing. I think we'll do it. How do I want to do it? Usually, honestly, I usually start with a chord. And that kind of like helps direct where the bass line goes. A lot of these songs, you can sit on this bass note for a really long time, though. Ooh, that sounds a little better, honestly. This is what I'm talking about. This is somebody else's patch. I've tweaked it a little bit, and I like what I've done already a little better than their patch. Just changing a little bit of the waveform, a little bit of how their effects are a little too strong to me, and the envelope generator was not hitting the way I wanted it to. I just tweaked it a little bit, but they gave me a great starting point, and I don't got to program all this. I think that's a really smart way to work. Here's that master overdrive. Filter overdrive. Doesn't do too much. Really gentle overdrive for the filter. Disappointing, but I'm sure it has its value. Let's get these reverb and delays on this device going. Make them a little bigger. Sounds pretty clean. So let's do a little bit of the note change. So another alternative to like filling this up with 16th notes, even though this gives you the most resolution, the most hands-on control, this lets you really finesse the sound and tweak it to its maximum potential. How many adjectives can I add here to kind of describe what's going on? A lot more, trust me, I can keep going. You could also just turn the arpeggiator on. And then we could play with the arpeggiator and just hold a note. And that actually would probably be a whole lot easier to program if I clear this all out. And we just put a trigger down and I set this to 16 steps, so it just plays this note for 16 steps. So it doesn't do anything there, but I turn the arpeggiator on, set it to like 2 octaves. And we want our clock syncs already set to 16. There it is again. Sounds different. Okay, let's change the mode. Okay, so now all I gotta do is change these notes. I kind of liked how it sounded when I used actual notes on the digatone a little better than the arpeggiator. I don't know why that is. But let's check a different note. I push down on here to stay in my scale, which is really cool. So let's drop to the D5. Copy that and move on from there. Okay, let's just kind of play with that. This is happening on every 16th note. I might have to like... I might have to change that a little bit. Let's just hear how it sounds. So to me, there's something about that that sounds a little... Maybe it was this repeat function. It's not terrible. Like, I think that this will sound the best. This will sound the best once I have a chord. But I think I know, like, when we can get these classic 80s bass lines here, piece of cake. Arpeggiator. I kind of like the idea of me programming them all in, and so I can have, like, this note do this, or add a trig condition, or introduce probability, which I think is something that can be overused, but also is very useful to have. And when I do this, I only have the resolution of this one step to work with. Even though I can like copy paste this and we can throw a chord down and like arpeggiate a chord, that's fine. Let's just mute this track. Which one is this? 13? Okay, we'll remember that. Let's go to track 14 and kind of turn this into a MIDI track. We're on channel 1. Let's go to a new patch. Go back to our chord mode. Why are we in Locrian? Oh wait, that's the chord. Chord mode, not my scale. Got it. I want 1, 3, 5, 7. Nice. Not blues either. This combo minor scales. Sounds pretty good. That's kind of cool. Let's go back to bank 1. I changed my shape, that's why I don't like the sound of those chords. Thought I had a stuck MIDI note there for a sec. this. Let's go. Yeah, maybe we go to the next. Do it like this. It was this one. Let's go to this chord here. Chord 1. Is it the same notes, just rearranged? Is that what's going on? Let's make these notes last a little longer too. Just give them a quarter note. That'll do the trick. Come on, sucker. We'll go in and add some accidentals or just some other notes into these chords once we get this simple progression going. Go here and okay. And that one needs to also be a quarter. Maybe I should just go ahead and just make them all a quarter note really quick. I'll just copy and paste it then if it's the same chord on every one. Okay. A little bit. Okay. Let's go to the next one. I was just right here, right? Let's just use this one again and then edit this note. Oh, there we go. Beautiful. Yes. Beautiful. These need to be, this one's not quarter note length yet. Let's fix that. Why was that? Oh, when I enter a new chord in, it removes that. Gosh dang it. That's lovely though. I want... keep that high note, switch that up. Too high. Nice. Let's just hear how it sounds so far. Throw this hi-hat in the sidechain bus. A lot more rhythm that way. I wish you could control the depth at which you can send stuff to the compressor. Maybe one day they'll have that in a future firmware update or something. That'd be so sick. Ooh, the resonance sounds really good. Turn up the vibrato on the patch. It should be the mod wheel, I imagine. It is. It is. Which is great. This is the first patch. Like we've explored the synthesizer, but we're on patch 1 and we just edited patch 1 ourselves because it is the right sound for this chord progression. Now let's get a bass. So now we want to record this. Let's talk about recording. So we go to our dig attack. We want to record a perfect 8-bar loop, even though we have those same chords happening. Do we want to change this at all first? I don't think it sounds bad like this. I think that works. For the sake of the demonstration, let's just stick with it. Okay. We're going to set this to record start. We want to record for 120 steps because this is an 8-bar pattern, so we're going to capture 8 bars in stereo with the pumping. So we want to... If we want to capture the pumping, I think we need to get the mains, which means I need to mute... Actually, I want to try something. Let's see what happens. Oh, post mix. There we go. Post mix should work. Let's find out. Just stop it. Just want to see. No, it doesn't. Okay. So it looks like I think we do want to do the mains to get the sidechain pumping. And then I think we need to take everything out from the mains. Kind of a pain to do this, but you know. There we go. But we want the sidechain pumping, and we can't get it without this process. So we want it to be a permanent fixture. And so we're gonna do this. I don't know why there's anything in the threshold. Okay, anyway. Perfect, let's check it out. Let's have a listen to see if it turned out the way we wanted it to. It sure did. Sounds wonderful. Perfect. Save it as chord pumping chords or chord pump or something. That works for me. Now we can leave this patch and go on to do something cool. Cooler. Different. I guess cooler is up to you, not me. Chord pumper T5 for take 5. Bada bing, bada boom. Such a good workflow. Great for sequencing external gear. So good at this. I don't need a keyboard. This works perfect for me. I can save it as an instrument. I love it, which I will some other time because I'm not going to make you sit through that. But and then sampling onto the dig attack, which has got so much memory and stereo, great sounding reverb and delay. So does this actually. Great sounding reverb and delay on that. Pretty big. Okay, let's sign it to a sample. I usually put the chords on 8, so that's what I'm gonna do. And now let's just leave here, and let's go back in here and get our audio back. Okay. Now we go to track 8. We're gonna put down a step. We don't need this sequence anymore, so I'm gonna get rid of that. And we're going to put a trigger down, make sure this is 8 bars long, of course, and our master, my goodness, also 8 bars long. Put a trigger down, set that for 8 bars. We could use slice mode and chop this up and like individually grab the chords and do all sorts of fun stuff, but I think right now we're kind of just trying to lay down some stems from this synthesizer. What, are you muted or something? Oh, you're not on the right patch, how dare you. What's up with that? Like some weird rhythm? Why is that not the exact rhythm? Oh wait, didn't I record it at 110? Why did it go to 114? There we go. Why did that go to 114? That is so bizarre. Did anybody know why that happened? Did anybody see me do something weird? Did I turn? No, I didn't. Anyway, it's working now. Yeesh. I was paranoid for a second. It's like landed on my own. Alright, we got our thing. I love it. It's great. Now I want to get like a bass line to go with it. What we could do, or we can even do like a really simple method to get some sparkles here and take advantage of the arpeggiator that's built in here, is we could actually keep this chord progression that we have and find something. That sounds like it could be cool as an arpeggio. But what if I want to modulate the pre-delay? That sounds insane. Okay. Just sending out like a... What's this LFO doing anyway? Super low depth already, I love it. That's so good. Record it. That's awesome. We have to do that same process again though, where we remove all the things. Move all the audio. Because I want that pumping. Beat it. Alright. Yeah. Lead pump or lead pump, whatever works for your brain. Lead pump T5. Cool. Put that on 16. Hope you actually put it on 16. Oops. 8 bars long, 128 steps. And so we're just grabbing stems essentially until we get, go kooky with it later, but for right now, this works. And make sure it grab the right sound. Whoa. Oh, it's a repitch machine. That's whack. Get out of here. Okay. Let's mute this so that... I'm definitely... It's so nice having an analog polysynth to play with right here. It doesn't have to be analog always, but it's always nice when it is. It's a much different sounds, different action than you get from a digatone. That's for sure. I guess we'll leave mod wheel on. I do like playing with mod wheel. Usually pitch bend, aftertouch, and breath control are also, a part of somebody's patch, and especially a preset pack that comes with a synthesizer like the Take 5. So, playing with those is advantageous for sure. Now we need a bass. Okay, so let's do it. Let's go back to 12. Is 12 hooked up? No, it's 13. 13 is... So if you press this preset button, it takes you out of preset mode and you just literally have whatever the panel is set to. So this is what the panel sounds like. Ugh. Terrible. I'm not gonna reset the panel. That's very bassy. I don't know how I feel about that. Bank 3, what do you got? Noise bass, you don't say. Doesn't have a high pass filter, it's an effect. That's something I don't like, but most everything I like on the synth, but the idea that it doesn't have a high pass filter, that's just a secondary filter. I think it's a necessity in synths, but that's a me thing. That's not everybody feels that way. I guess we just turn the arpeggiator on and see what happens. We'll leave it at no octave and just let it do its thing. Do I want it to pump? I don't want it to pump with those I want it to pump on the original drum pattern, which was 4 on the floor. So I could make another drum pattern and set it to do that. Or we could have the bass line not pump. Let's see what happens when we turn off the pumping. We've been doing that pretty excessively. Sheesh. That patch is super loud. What? Let's just program it. Forget the arpeggiator for now. Let's go 16th notes though. I like that. Just copy the page. Just fill them all up for now. Very basic. Well, let's see. How will C sound? Definitely good on a turnaround. It could be the first chord. The first. Let's see. We go here and we go. Let's just hear all these two. It's pretty emotional. Now my ears are getting used to it. Now I like it. Copy, paste, the next page. That was not the right note. Is it A? Yeah, we just have that A go twice. I think that is already how it's programmed, so that's nice. So here we go. Instead of going to A, we'll go. It starts on C, right? Yeah, I don't want to go back to C. Let's do something a little bit more creative. Let's see how D sounds here. Let's just loop these two. That works. Okay, so 5, let's go to 6, so we're gonna go. Oof. Ooh, is F the one? And is the G finally there? Let's listen. definitely not. G5, get out of here. Definitely a lower note. These all set to 16? Holy shoot. I didn't mean to do that. Let's see if we can... This might take me a second. It might have to take me a moment to undo this. I do want to have control over the trig length for each one of these notes. I think 30-second notes is actually pretty good. Okay, those are good. What about these? Oh, man. You gotta bear with me. We're almost there. We're almost to the end. Little beautiful synthwave pattern using the Take 5. We're gonna get there. That was my goal. And plan to accomplish it. Let's get these notes out of here. Those are good, apparently. Oh, not here. Okay, this explains why I was having trouble with the bass sound, and I turned up the sustain, and I was like... There we go. There's this lo-fi effect in here, it's actually pretty sick. That sounds like another overdrive. Turn it back off though. want to go to my octave track, it's not here. Turn this gain down a little bit. Turn up the portamento a bit. There's something there. I hear it. Round, down, do, do, do. What? I think that works. What happened? I guess that works. Toms or something? It was a fun session. I'm not gonna lie. Pretty good session. Pretty fun time. God, there's just something so nice about analog polysynths that no matter what, I just can't get over how much warmer they sound. There's something about like there's lots of digital emulations, FPGA synthesizers that use chips that are just running. They're functioning at such a capacity that it's pretty similar. Like the Novation Peak, for instance. That's a synthesizer that uses, I think it's FPGA chips, and they're just they're optimal chips for synthesis, but it uses an analog filter. And I think it's the analog filter that really is the thing that's like the thing that makes an analog synth sound so good. But the analog VCOs, they do have a particular warmth, so to speak, to them because they are, the way I like to think of it is like we're using physics, like just there's no like middleman between you and the oscillator sound, as where it's a digital thing is like you're still getting that oscillator shape into your brain, but at the very micro level, it's going like this. It's making these little sharp turns at every little corner of the shape. Whereas because it's, it's a jagged shape no matter what, at the very bottom of the shape, and like an FPGA chip would be, further down into that micro perspective of the waveform, it would be still further down, it becomes like that. And I think in an analog oscillator, it never goes like that. Well, I don't know, unless we live in a simulation. Then it does. But if we don't, it never does. And that's why it sounds so full, because there's nothing missing from it. It's just it's everything. And an analog filter kind of gives you that action because it doesn't have any of those jagged edges either. It is a perfect or an imperfect smooth shape, and smooth shapes equal warmth to our ears. There's no doubt about it. Anything that sounds smooth equals warmth. Sine waves, warmth, just the fundamental tone. Analog synths, they just have that warm tone, and it's because of physics, sound physics, as opposed to things being run through a computer. But yeah, the Take 5, nice sounding synthesizer. It's good to play with it again in the studio. Been a long time. Been a while since I even had an analog synth on my desk, to be honest. I haven't had analog synths over here in a while. Even I've been missing my Syntact, and I've been thinking I should pull it back and put it back on the table. I thought I had it right behind me. I do that a lot, and just never what I think is there is there. The Syntax is not a poly. Analog poly, there's something about the sound that gets made. Like, there's something about this. I know my Digatone can't do exactly this sound. And it really captures that synthwave thing that I love and those beautiful chords. I don't know. I think we nailed it today. Honestly, I don't think I need to go any further with this demonstration. I think I've made my point. Jump me all over the place. It's perspective. I hope gives me kind of a double chin. I hate that. It's not the look I like. Let me say what's up to the chat again. It's been a little while. What's the 32 oscillator analog synth? No idea. UBXA? Oh, there you go. Yeah, it's a big guy. John Carter, have they changed the screens on the UBXA to white? Oh, you're not asking me, are you? I definitely tried these. Yeah, CME products. Pastel's talking about CME products. Those are good products. I definitely stand by CME. Chord mode is dope. There's no doubt about it. If you only had the Digitact, which would you buy first? The Digitone or the Take 5? It really depends on what you're trying to do, To me, any synthesizer that I buy, let me try and put myself in your shoes. I think if I was a Digitact owner and I knew how to use the Digitact, then I'd probably get a Digatone because I would already know how to use it. If I was, I really wanted a analog synthesizer, I'd get the Take 5 instead, and your goals would get accomplished very well. It really depends on the ecosystem that you want to build and how comfortable you are going outside of your ecosystem to learn another device, because that's tough. And yeah, it can eat a lot of bandwidth learning new devices. But that's kind of what I was saying about in the beginning of the stream. It's just like when I went over like this panel and like what this synthesizer is, it's such an easy synth. It does classic sounds. Do you want a classic analog synth? Yeah, Take 5. You're not going to get classic analog sounds from a Digatone, that's for sure. So if you're really after those sounds, not the Digatone in that case. Take 5 and a Volca FM. Well, there you go. Yeah. Take 5 and a Volca FM. That'll get you all the sounds. But the Volca FM actually sounds far more FM than the Digatone does. It sounds like an actual DX7. $4.99. John Carter. Thank you, John. Seeing as I can't buy you a coffee, I'm in the UK. A bit of appreciation to all your excellent streams. Oh, thanks, man. I really appreciate that. I'll buy a coffee with that, even though I had enough coffee, I think. Emo vibes, yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell, I think. I love my Take 5. It's like a prophet's little angry, mischievous brother. That is actually a really good way to put it, because Timberdoodle, great name, by the way. Wish I had thought of that. It is kind of the mischievous little brother, because it does sound a lot like it has a similar, it has the envelopes from the Prophet 5, or the snappy envelopes of the 5, and it has a similar filter. It doesn't sound the same, of course. It is a different synth, and it has way less to offer. The Prophet 5 does than the Take 5. The Prophet 5 has way less to offer. The Prophet 5 has a vintage sound, large keyboard, beautiful instrument, up to 10 voices. So it's not always a Prophet 5. It can be a Prophet 10. Expandable from the 5 to a 10. And this is not. This is a 5-voice synth, and that is what it is. But this has built-in effects, huge modulation matrix. Prophet 5, you are leaning much more heavy on the poly... What do they call it? The poly mod. It's over in the corner. And it's just... You can get a lot done with it, but it's really just like kind of FMing everything. And sounds good, but this just has like more simple in terms of your imagination. Like the poly mod is like, will this sound good? Whereas this is like, I know what the shape of a ramp LFO at quarter notes sounds like going to the filter cutoff. You can just program that. You can just make that a thing. That's not a hard thing to do here. Whereas on the Prophet 5, you just can't do that very easily, or even do a lot of those things at all. And this is just, as far as an analog synthesizer goes, it's just a piece of cake to learn and use. So I like that. I like easy. Not that the stuff I do. I do Octatrack stuff, and like that's my specialty, right? Is programming the Octatrack. I have specialty, or that's the thing that I've spent the most time learning, is programming the Octatrack. And it's not easy by any means, but I do prefer something that is. And this is what I would consider easy. I'm sequencing it with the Digatone, and I'm sampling it with the Digitact. And I think that if you have a Digitact and a Digatone and something like a Prophet Take 5 or any other module like this, this is the workflow that I would tell you to do. I would say use a Digatone to sequence anything, just because of the note editing features, and because of the scale modes and the chord modes built into the Digatone that work in the MIDI side, except for the arpeggiator, which is, for whatever reason, I still don't understand. Even when I ask them, I don't understand why Electron hasn't added that. But this has an arpeggiator, and often a desktop synth like this has at least an arpeggiator, if not a sequencer and an arpeggiator, which this has both of. So that's great. So yeah, and I think sampling, especially in stereo, when you have stereo effects like this has, that it's a good idea to use your Digitact as the receiver of that audio, so that you can further manipulate it or chop it up in the new Slice engine, or which is something that we could do, which I don't feel like doing, but because the whole another process. And honestly, I'm getting a little frustrated with the Slice thing. It's not that it doesn't work; it works great. I'm so used to chopping on the Octatrack, and when I hold function and turn the encoder, it just is moving the start position on zero crossings, and it does that same thing, but it does it really slowly, and so like I end up doing the wrong anyway. I'm just like, I've not gotten used to it, so I'm futzing it up. Kind of like when they changed over they added a song button instead of this being the bank button. When they switched that up, I was like really thrown for a loop for a long time. And now I'm finally over that, but it took like a month or two to get through that. Will illuminated MIDI cables be available at Modbang at some point? They sure will, Ed. These MIDI cables, there's red and blue, and then there's green and red, and those are the two options I have available in 1 foot, 3 foot, and 5 foot. They will be available at modbang.com exclusively up until eventually probably Perfect Circuit and a couple other synth shops, but Perfect Circuit most likely next. But currently at modbang.com, that will be where you'll find them until I get them into other shops. But they should be here soon. Should be here in the next couple weeks. So it should be cool, and I'm excited to get them out to people. It took me a year to get this going. Work it easy. Oh, thanks. As always, too much. Who's this Jimmy Salander? Thanks, Jimmy. Appreciate you stopping by, dude. This is a stream of discussion. That's what we're trying to do. Yeah, it does sound really good, I think. What synth is the one on top is the Take 5. Have to watch the replay because I just joined. Yeah, you should. It'll be on there. I'm behind the live quite a bit. How do you like this more than the TO5? I haven't gotten to use the TO5, but to me, they're pretty much the same synth. I mean, in terms of the top of the synthesizer, the TO versus the Take 5, they're basically the same synthesizer. Different oscillator chips. This has the 2130. I believe that's the chip set. And the Oberheim does not have the 2130, and the Oberheim has the Oberheim filter, which I forget if it's a SEM or the Curtis. But this has a low pole or a 4-pole low pass filter based off the Prophet 5 Rev 4. Don't leave us like Ricky. I'm not going anywhere. Hopefully Ricky will come back. That would be great. But yeah, this is what we made today. Sounds great. I dig the synth. Cool. That'll be it from me today. I don't want to upset Jimmy Salander any further with my talking. He's getting pretty bummed about it. So, my name's Matthew, aka EZBOT, and this has been a live stream. Today we were taking a look at the lovely sequential Take 5, which I think sounds fantastic. Like I said, I've owned one in the past. It's cool to have the desktop in front of me right now. And we sequenced it with the Digatone 2 by Electron, taking advantage of all its scales and chord modes. It sampled all those things, layered them, sidechained, pumped them with the Digitac 2, and turned out pretty good. So definitely recommend trying those techniques with this box or any other external synthesizer if you happen to own these two Electron boxes. Pairing with external synth like the Take 5 is really fun and sounds fantastic. If you'd like to support this channel, you can go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can join the Discord. It's completely free. There'll be a link to join in the comments section. If you want to go a little further and really help this channel stay alive and so we don't lose me or whatever, which, you know, I don't see that happening anyway, but you can visit patreon.com/EZBOT and join the Patreon and sign up. And there's lots of Octatrack rewards on there, as well as some M8 Tracker, Digitact, some sample packs that you can use with any sample if you'd like that I've worked from the first set of the Prophet 5. There's a bunch of stuff on there. Great community to hang out and different tiers that have you interact in group settings and make some friends. It's a fun community. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and join patreon.com/EZBOT. If you also want to get the templates, you can visit coffee.com/EZBOT. Just buy the templates. But for sure, definitely join the Discord because it is totally free and it's a great community, awesome marketplace if you want to like buy and sell and make some friends and collaborate on music. Good place to do that. So everybody, thanks for hanging out. It's been a live stream. We do this every Tuesday. Come on back next Tuesday for another live stream. Talk soon.